Hi, this is Jeanette, and welcome to The Bridge Within. During my last video, I believe it was Dreams 3, I did a series on dreams. I mentioned how there was a time in my life, not that long ago, where I felt like I was being attacked kind of demonically, and how that came in all sorts of forms through people in my life. And so today I thought I would talk about demons. I think it's an important subject. I know in the spiritual community, there are a lot of people who do not believe in demons, but there are a lot of people who do. And I think if we were to really not be so worried about what a demon is, I think we would all come to the realization that we really do believe in evil. And I think that's what demons are and what influences them. So I was looking up what are demons, and there are a lot of people that believe they are fallen angels, and there are a lot of people that believe they're evil spirits. And what forms do they take? A lot of people believe that all extraterrestrials are demonic. I believe there's good and bad. I think there are some that work with God and some who don't, just like people. There's some people that work for God and some who don't, and some who are just self-serving. And I think you'll find that across the board with every living being. And like angels, there's fallen angels and there's angels that work for God. And then also, like in the fairies, when people talk about fairies, especially like the folklore of fairies, there's a lot of stories about good fairies, not so good fairies, and evil fairies, even in the fairy world. And then there is like ghosts and spirits, which I think they're a little different. I believe ghosts are earthbound. Why they're earthbound, I don't know. I think maybe some are just afraid to go to the light or miss the light or just lost souls. And it's just kind of, it's just so sad. I mean, I think they just wander around until someone helps them cross the light. And then I think there are some that stay here for self-serving reasons. And then I think there are some that really are evil. They're just downright evil. I think they could be considered demons. And then there is possession, like demons that possess and work through people. So I don't think the people, our brothers and sisters, are necessarily evil, but there have been things that has caused them to work with demons. And I think you'll find that with like a lot of narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths and, you know, all those kind of mental disorders. I guess they're called mental disorders or whatever they are. They're not good. I really think they are demonic. And if you know someone that is working with, you know, a disorder like that, don't underestimate them. I truly believe they are being influenced by evil spirits. So another thing I thought I'd look up is what makes us susceptible to these demons, so-called demons. So Raymond Moody, I don't know if you guys know him, he coined the term near-death experience. And he is a doctor who scientifically is very scientific about his approach towards near-death experiences and through spirituality. And he said, he didn't say this. During one of the shows he used to have on TV, and I cannot find it, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it was a wonderful show, and they were interviewing someone that had a funny near-death experience. And I think I've told this story before, where this person passed away in a hospital, and instead of going, you know, towards the light or not towards the light, having, you know, sometimes you'll hear of people that have hellish near-death experiences, but those are rare. He went to a bar. He ended up going, his spirit went to a tavern, and he said he saw other entities there that were just sitting by the people that were drinking and waiting until they became so intoxicated that they no longer had this spiritual protection around them. And once that spiritual protection around them, God's protection, was weak enough because of the drinking and the influence of that drug, they were able to enter into that living human host and experience being drunk, because they were so addicted to drinking or doing drugs or whatever they're doing in this life that they never left, because they couldn't abandon that addiction. That's so sad, that even though they no longer have a physical body that is affected by this addiction, they're emotionally and spiritually so addicted to it that they are still wanting to partake in that addiction. So I was thinking, you know, that is another way, probably, like evil spirits and demons can enter us, is when our spiritual protection is weak. And what can weaken us? Someone just said, just by being alive. And I really have to agree with that, because as humans, we go through so many trials and so many hard times. We go through joy and through lows, and this life is hard. And it's really hard for some by no fault of their own. And I think when we let life get to us, I think it makes us weak. And so some of the way that can happen is severe or unresolved trauma. I don't know anyone that gets out of this world without experiencing trauma. By our vulnerabilities, we're all vulnerable to something. We all have a weakness, right? And by innocence or people's potential. So there's the demons seem to really like the light. They don't like us. They want to snuff it out. Evil does not like light. They do not like goodness. They do not like purity. They do not like innocence. And because their hatred for that is so strong, they are very attracted to it, and they will try to destroy it. And they will try to destroy people that have this potential to bring good into this world, because they don't want it. You know, when you bring good into this life, you bring something that benefits mankind, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, our earth. Is just something that is of God, and they do not want that. I don't know why they hate God so much. I don't know why they hate this goodness so much, but they do, and I'm getting tingles, and they just want to destroy it. So if you find that you're being attacked by demons, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't. It means they do not want you to reach your potential. Because when we work with God, we reach our potential. And another person stated they believe it's perceived weakness. They like to exploit our weaknesses and our vulnerabilities. You know, the weaker we are and the more vulnerable we are, the less we can do for our own good or for the good of others. I believe, you know, I notice for me, like, I have to really watch what I listen to and what I watch. Like, if I was watching, like, what show was that? That was, everyone was addicted to, back in the 2010-ish years. It's, The Walking Dead. I was watching The Walking Dead, but I noticed that I cannot watch things like that at night. I don't know why, because I guess maybe because it's too close to bed, and when we go to sleep, we're kind of wide open. And I would go, every time I'd watch it before I go to bed, or anytime I watch something scary like that, I have terrible nightmares. And so whenever I watch anything that's remotely scary, I watch it in the morning. And that seems to work a lot better for me. Another thing that I have noticed that helps me to stay more uplifted and less susceptible to these things are watching what I read. You know, make sure that it's uplifting. So now I'm starting to talk about what I want to talk about. My next video is how to protect yourself. So we'll just go on to what other people had said. what I had read, kind of got on a tangent. And a lot of people said that emotions can make you susceptible to the demonic attack, like depression, sadness, envy, dissatisfaction, jealousy, which is envy. I just repeated myself. A lot of like Christians believe sin, but their idea of sin might not be your idea of sin. I just think if you live the golden rule, that's the best thing we can do. But they go on to say like dabbling in things that we shouldn't, like the occult and stuff. And I think it's kind of funny because a lot of them will say that what I do is of the devil, but a lot of them that are in churches, I've noticed that they believe they can receive prophecies and that they can interpret dreams and that they can predict, I said prophecy, so that's predicting the future. And they can do other things like get messages from God and stuff. So, really that's kind of the same as what, we do. It's really no different. And honestly, there is a lot of demonic. Some of these places like churches, some of the churches, I'm not saying all of them, some of the churches or can if they have teachings of hate and stuff, that can open you up. Or if they teach fear, that can open you up to demonic entities. I know, because as a child, I'll tell you a story about my experience as a child. I know it was all about fear, religious fear. So we have to be careful not to judge each other. Really, if we're working towards bringing good into this world, that is God's work. So we have to be careful not to judge each other. So I think judging is another way that you can also invite. There's so many different ways to do it. I mean, like, I really like what the one person said, just being alive really can, it leaves you open. It's a human condition. We are all tempted. We all have things happen to us that test our patience and test us. It's just sad. There is good and evil in this world. There's good and evil in everything. It just seems the way that we experience life and the way it's been set up that we experience life. I guess, we have free agency to choose what we want in our life. Do we want good or do we want evil? It's up to us. God gave us free agency and we use it. There's like this parable. They say it's a Native American one. It sounds like it might be. I like to think it is, but it's a good one. It's, I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit. It's about, we each have two wolves. One's on this side, one's on this side. And one is good and one is evil. And which one takes us over is the one that we feed the most. The one, if we're doing our best, to be uplifting and feed the light in our life, we are going to be influenced by that good wolf. If we are falling into darkness, then unfortunately, we are going to be more susceptible to demons. It doesn't mean we're bad. It just means we're going to be more susceptible to those demonic attacks. And that's nothing you want. It's nothing you deserve. No one does. And so I did talk about how demons can work through others, through possession. And I think the reason they do that is because if a demon cannot influence you personally and cause you to act the way they want you to act, they can at least wear you down. And one of the ways they love to wear us down is through people that I like I said before, I really believe narcissism and psychopathy and sociopathy. I believe that is those people are working with demons, and you have to be so careful about who you surround yourself with. So surrounding yourself with the right people is so important, but sometimes we can't. A lot of jobs I've noticed really put these kind of people in charge. And I've noticed that a lot of people have really bad experiences at work. I've had bad experiences at work. But I don't want to really talk about how demons can influence us through work yet, because I'll share my experiences later in this video. I want to talk about what I believe the first time I had a real spiritual attack through what I would consider a demon. It was evil. Whatever it was evil. And I can't remember. I was a child when it first started happening. And my mom says she could remember I would go happily in my room. One day she gave me a popsicle. I went happily into my room to eat it. And like few minutes later, I came out screaming and and crying and so upset. Well, I know what happened because it happened to me a lot. It would happen to me in my room, and it would also happen to me a lot when I was in the, we would take baths, but we'd also wash our hair a lot of times in the utility sink, which was like just in the dining room. It's a small house. It's an old house. And next to it is like the power, the power switches. And so I have heard that like entities can get a lot of energy from sources like that. So they would be really powerful there. And then I think the water also made it really powerful. So a lot of times I feel like I'd get attacked there too. So when I would get attacked, it would be like, I'd be just fine. I'd be doing something I really liked. And then all of a sudden I'd feel like this darkness would surround me and engulf me and try to consume me. I felt like it was trying to enter my body, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I was so frightened. It was so real to me, and I would do nothing but resist it. I would do everything I could to resist it. I would do it silently. I was too fearful to speak. And I would just fight it until it would finally give up and release, and it'd let me go, and I'd come running out and seek the comfort of my mother. And at the time, there was a lot of religious tension in our house because my dad was fearful when my mom became a Jehovah's Witness, and he was raised Catholic, but he really wasn't practicing. He was fearful that her becoming a Jehovah's Witness would kind of interfere with their relationship and with our family. I would think he was really frightened that it would break apart our family. It didn't. It hurt us because my dad was so fearful, but in the end, my parents worked that out, and they became very, very close. And I think it made things closer for them, and they learned to respect each other's differences. But so that happened to me for years as a child. And like I said, I'd wash my hair in this utility sink that's by the power source. And I would just all of a sudden, same thing, feel this dark entity come behind me and engulf me and surround me and try and hold on to me and like try to enter me. And I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I was so fearful, but I would resist. I get so tense and just, I would pray. That is the thing I would do each time. I really do remember that. I would pray. I'd pray to God for help. I couldn't speak out loud. I couldn't rebuke it, but I did pray within my heart for a release. And I did not want that thing to enter me. I was so scared. And I know that's what it wanted to do. And I can feel my, head chakra going off right now. And it happened, like I said, for years. And I can remember I can't remember the first time I did it because it happened so often. And I think it happened when I was fairly young. I want to say I was like 8, maybe 7. I don't know. But I remember the last time it happened was when I was 13 or 14, whatever your age you are when you are in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade math. I think it was the last class of the day, or next to the last class of the day. And I remember sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I felt this dark entity, that familiar spirit, surround me and try to reach within me and, enter me, and I was frozen. And I was terrified. And part of me was worried about what other people might think, but I don't think anyone noticed. I was just frozen. And I prayed in my heart again. I just prayed, and that was the last time that thing came to me. I was so glad, so grateful that that ended. That was horrible. It was so scary. And from then on, I knew that that dark side is real, and it wants to snuff out our light, because I could feel it trying to snuff out my light. And at that time, it was funny. Not only were my parents having this religious, disagreement, but also it was like around the time when they were doing like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist, and sometime along that, I remember like some of those movies were really really popular. And I remember when I was a little older, I was asking my mom to bring me to Catholic priests, because I thought, oh, well, maybe an exorcism would work, but she never did. Instead, she went and talked to her elders at her church, and they believed it was real. My mom saw me before and after. She believed it was real, a demonic attack. And my father, no, he didn't. He kind of poo-pooed it. But like I said, he really wasn't spiritual while I was growing up. He had some bad experiences with the nuns growing up. And so he just kind of was over religion. And then I think I was kind of left alone, and I went to high school. I did normal things. Like I was tempted in other ways. The normal teenage years, you kind of explore in things you probably shouldn't. And you're trying to discover who you are, so you're insecure. And it's kind of a weird time for people. And so I would say it was pretty normal. I was pretty normal teenager. And then, let's see here. I think I was a junior. There was like this religious revival going around at my school, because one of the kids almost died. It was a diving accident, and he dove, and he had like a near-death experience, and his friend had to save him. And the guy that dove and almost died, or died for temporarily, he started, going to churches, and a whole group of people joined, and I was one of them. I was looking for a church too, so we would go to churches, and my dad was so against churches, I had to sneak off to go to these churches. And so it was a fun time for me. We were doing Young Life, and it was clean, innocent fun. Luckily, I got my experiences with the churches and these youth activities were fun and wholesome. I got into a group of good people. I didn't experience any of that essay that happens in some of these religious organizations. For me, it was all nice. And but I was frustrated, because my mother told me that there were only like 2 or 3 churches that claim to be true. I know now that's not real. I think they all believe they're true. And she told me it was Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, and the Catholics. Well, I kind of knew that I didn't really agree with the Catholic religion. And there's no way I could dare go to the Jehovah's Witnesses, because my dad would just have a cow. And I did have a Mormon friend, and I really wanted to go to some of her dances, but my dad would not let me go to the dances. Like I said, he did not like religion. I had to sneak off to everything. And the Mormon friend was not part of this religious group that I could go hang out with, that my mother would let me go hang out with. I don't even think she knew what I was doing. And during that time, that was nice, but I was frustrated. And I would notice that the Christians, churches, would each say that it doesn't matter what religion you go to, just as long as you accept Christ into your heart. But then they would kind of bash each other's churches a little bit. And I thought, that's weird. That's not really unity. You would think if if all you have to do is accept Christ into your life, then there would be a unity, a true unity amongst Christians. But there really isn't. So I felt kind of sad about that. So again, then I kind of turned away from that because I was looking for a real religion. But during that time, there was the time between when I stopped going to all these religious things. I thought, well, I'll just not be anything. And then my life got a little dark there for a little bit. I was drinking a little bit and experimenting with light drugs. I was maybe like diet pills and marijuana. I felt really guilty about that. So for me, it felt really dark. And after a while, I was really beginning to question if that was for me, because I really didn't enjoy it that much, because I felt so guilty. I really felt guilty. I have a real good guilt thing going. I finally think I'm overcoming that. But boy, I'll tell you, that guilt will do a number to you. And I remember I had just gone through dental assisting school and was going home from my first job working for a dentist. And I remember thinking, well, maybe Christ isn't the answer. This thought came into my mind. Maybe Christ isn't the answer. Maybe the devil isn't as bad as what they say. And then I looked sideways and I thought, what was that? That frightened me a bit. I didn't realize that we had to watch our thoughts. That was one way that evil could enter your mind, is through a thought. Not all thoughts are our own. We have to be very careful. So everything went okay, for me. I was having fun raising my kids, and for the most part, I was happy. I had some sadness in my life, but it wasn't too bad. I did notice in my 20s, we wanted to take a break from having children. I had 3 within 3 years and 1 month. And so it was a lot. And so I tried oral contraceptives, the traditional estrogen based ones. And I noticed I can't really take those after a month, or maybe it was 2 months. I said, that's it. I can't do it, because I was having 2 periods a month and having PMS twice a month. And I just thought, no, not worth it. And so I left birth control alone for quite a few years. And then in my 30s, my doctor suggested. So we tried it orally for a month or 2 and everything went really well. So I started doing the injections and everything was going well until it wasn't. And it started out slow. I started, feeling a little sad. Oh no, at first I was raging. Sorry, I was angry and raging. And then I started to feel sad, and then I went to full-blown depression. And I cried my way through life for 3 years. And I called the company during that time because I stumbled upon a website where these other women were talking about similar experiences they were having with this medication. And the pharmacy or the pharmaceutical company told me, oh no, that is not a side effect. So I believed them, because at the time I thought, oh, all doctors and pharmaceutical companies, all they want to do is help us. Because I thought, I couldn't think like that. I would never hurt anyone. Why would anyone else, try to hurt us, especially someone in the medical field? And so I spent 3 years crying, and I would get up, fall to my knees and cry, go take a shower, cry through the shower, get out of the shower, cry, put on my makeup, shower, and just the whole day, go through the whole day crying, go to bed, cry. And then it got to the point, the worst part is when I went numb. But during that time when I was so depressed, my husband, he at the time brought me to the Phantom of the Opera. And oh my goodness, the music was so beautiful, but so like hypnotic. And I would dream about that music. It was really funny how I dream about it. But also at that time, I noticed I was starting to also dream about committing That's all that I would dream about, is committing it. And I always swore I would never ever do that to my family. I've seen what that does to families when a member, especially a parent, commit. It like opens up an idea into the survivor's mindset that, oh, suicide is acceptable, and it is an acceptable way out. It's an easy way out when life gets too hard. And it's just devastating. I never, ever, ever want to do that to my children. So I promised I would never do that. And I think that's the only reason I got through that time. So I feel like I was being spiritually attacked that way too. Then I got off of it, and slowly everything went okay. Of course, my marriage was torn apart by then. And also, it was funny is during that time when I was doing the Depo, or like weaning off the Depo, it was really weird. I remember one day I had this thought, because I was having a hard time losing weight, and I thought, maybe I should just do math. And then I looked at me, my eyes went sideways again. And I'm like, where did that thought come from? That's not me. I know what meth does. I know how destructive it is. And there is no way I'm going to do meth. I mean, I wasn't even drinking caffeine. I wasn't drinking alcohol. I wouldn't smoke. I mean, I was at the time still a stringent Mormon. I wasn't doing anything. I was barely even eating sugar at the time. So I thought, oh, yeah, that's not good. Where's that coming from? Because that's not coming from me. I believe that was another thought that was put into my head by entities that are evil. Because, meth and drugs have destroyed a lot of beautiful people. Look at how many people that you know or have seen that have fallen victim to that would be doing so much good if they had not partaken in that drug. And during that time, shortly after that, I started to kind of not feel a lot. I didn't feel like I was getting a lot from going to church. It felt dead to me, and I felt like it was no longer for me. And so I started reading about spirituality and listened to people talk about spirituality, and I was really starting to feel something again. I was starting to feel closer to God, and I felt that like there was something really to it for me, and I wanted to explore it more. But I did not realize at the time that you had to protect yourself, and I did not know how to protect yourself. So when I was doing some of these exercises, I was opening up, but I was open, and anything and everything was, I think, coming near me. And I was, like this like little radio receptor, getting all this stuff in, and it was really frightening for me. And so I do believe that when we don't protect ourselves spiritually, like through prayer and through all these other things that we have talked about, we'll do something about protecting ourselves in another video. And anyways, so I was having some weird experiences, but most of them were really good. Most of them were beautiful, and most of them I know were sent by God. But like there was that one entity that came into our house, and I felt familiar. I felt like it was somehow connected to that entity that used to pick on me when I was a child. And it used to kind of hang out in my daughter's bedroom. That bedroom was weird because it had like a storage space on this side, and then under her was the garage. Above her, was there an attic? Yeah, there was a little attic. No, there was no attic. But on the other sides, all surrounded, there was crawl space. You could we drilled a hole, we cut out a hole in her closet to get to the tub, to fix the tub once, and you could crawl almost all the way around her room. I mean, it was weird. There was like a lot of empty spaces, and I think sometimes these entities, these dark entities, like to hide in those like dark spaces. And so it would shake her bed. And I remember she'd call it the bed shaker. And I remember she would go on a date and I would sleep in her bed, and I would sleep in her bed so I could see her face. I would wake up and see her face to see how her date went. So I knew she was okay. I could look in her eyes and see that everything went well. And while I was sleeping in her bed, the bed shaker would come. It would shake the bed. Sometimes the dog would feel it and jump off and get fearful, and sometimes it wouldn't. The other dog would not go in that bedroom at night. And there was one time we were painting or something in her room, and we had a ladder up there, and I was standing by the ladder, and I felt this distinct tap on my back, and that scared me. It was physical touch. So I knew that was not good. And while I was laying in that bed, I felt that darkness try to come over me. Luckily, my daughter did not experience this, but I think this was that one entity that was after me, come over me. So it went on top of me this time and would try to surround me and engulf me. And I felt like it this time, I didn't feel like it was trying to possess me, but I felt like it was trying to rape me. It was the weirdest thing. So I knew that was not good. I knew that was evil. And I kept listening to, church sermons, during, while I was sleeping in that bed, but I did not always keep it away. And I was very careful not to listen to anything that would talk about the cult or anything that would talk about anything scary. I tried to keep it really uplifting, but it just was there. We had the hardest time getting rid of that thing. And finally I found out how to do it. It was a white light and prayer. White candle and prayer. And that, I was shocked. Simple as snuff. It worked, because I tried a lot of other things because I was asking friends about it. And then another time that I feel like I had a demonic experience, like I think a lot of my jobs. So, because I've always, like I said, I think there's a lot of people that work with dark entities without even realizing it, because they want power, like through narcissism. And I think a lot of these people are put in positions of power. And so I was feeling that in my job. I was a stay-at-home mom. And then when I got divorced, I went to work. I went to work for this place where we help the intellectually disabled try to be as independent as possible. And the leader, I swear, she started that position or that organization just so she could control other people's lives. And her constant negativity and her constant picking on all of us, I think, it just created a terrible atmosphere in that building. And I was getting horrible headaches again. I would come home so exhausted. I was only working 5 hours a day. I would come home, and so I would work like from 7 to 12. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 7 to 12. I would come home, I'd lay on the couch, and I'd fall asleep. And I'd fall asleep until it was time to get up and go to bed. And I'd go to bed and try to sleep all night. And that's the way it was the whole 6 months I was there. And I noticed that my position got it the worst. And it was terrible during that time. I got so sick. I started getting headaches again. I gained a lot of weight. And I just didn't have energy to do anything. All the joy was zapped out of me, and I feel like I was being spiritually attacked. And I feel like that woman was working with demons, and I still believe she does till this day. I can tell you, she has affected a lot of lives very negatively. And then I went to another job, a dental position, and again, I was being attacked. I think I've talked about that. I was being attacked there. And there were 2 people running it, one in the back and one in the front. And it was horrendous. And I wasn't the only one they were attacking. They were attacking everyone that was good, that was of light. And again, I got really sick. And I started having severe back pain. I could no longer assist anymore or work like I had. And it was just horrible. I would cry all the way to work and cry all the way back. In fact, I became so depressed because at that time, I was also, I think I've talked about this before, challenging this church with a group of people to open up their books so that we can see, where the money was being spent, because the treasurer at the time felt like there were members who had access to the funds, had been funneling it for personal use, and they would not do it, and they got mean and nasty. And these people that I later found out that lead this church dabble in witchcraft and dark witchcraft, and I was being attacked on that front too. And it's funny because it felt like at that time that all the evil was summoned that surrounded me. I was getting at work. The person I was living with was getting really frustrated with me and would not talk to me nice. And it was horrendous at home. I even told this person, you can't do this to me. I'm not feeling strong enough to deal with this. Because at the time, Esther came out of the woodwork, and she started really harassing me, and harassed me to the point where I had to get a restraining order against her, because my parents told me that she was threatening to disfigure my face. That's what they said. I didn't hear her say that, but that's what they said that she was saying. And they were really frightened for me. And I was not allowed to go into my childhood home for years because of their worry for me. And anyways, all this was coming to me all at once, and it was just unrelenting. It was every day, day in and day out. And my health was going downhill. It was just massive headaches, exhaustion. My feet were actually even starting to hurt. And I love to walk and hike, and it was really hard to do that. I had no energy to do anything that was fun. And I remember I would cry going to work and cry going home. And while I was going to work and back, there was a bridge I would cross, the Warren Avenue Bridge in Bremerton. And I was always so tempted to pull over, walk onto that bridge, and jump off, going to and from work. And there was no way I could really get around it. That was the fastest way to get home. And so I was kind of stuck going over that bridge every day. And it's a miracle I did not do that, because that is really what I wanted to do. And I think the only thing that really saved me were my friends in the spiritual community that gave me messages of hope, gave me messages of a better future, gave me messages of light, gave me messages of love, that gave me just enough hope and enough faith to move on. I tell you, during that time, things were so dark, and I was getting picked on so much that I was so afraid. My biggest fear was that I was going to turn into one of those people and become that evil, nasty person, because I was getting angry. I was feeling, when you're picked on, you feel angry. And I was so fearful I would become that. But one of my friends who I trust she's a great medium. She's probably one of the best I know. She told me, no, that's not going to happen, Jeanette. And it didn't. And I feel like now that I'm out of those situations, I'm able to find that goodness within me more, and it's starting to pour out more. The real me is starting to shine forth again. And during my last job, again, I don't know what it is. It was a job to help those that need just that little extra help in home, like a home care assistant or associate, I forget what it's called. Anyways, and I was working for a religious organization. So you think it would be a great place to work. You think it would be full of light and love, but no. The caregivers are really great, but I tell you, the people in that organization, in that office, it was like walking into a den of snakes. I have never been in a work position like that before, because usually it's always been one or two people that cause all the problems. In this one, it was like everyone in the office. It's like they play good cop, bad cop. They play like they're your friend and then sting you. And then, you know, like one day during training, I was parked in a place and one of the people parked next to me, and she looked at me with so much hate and disgust, like I should not have parked there, and walked into the office that I could just feel her hatred. It was really weird, but luckily then I was stronger and I was not working in that office. So that was the key. I was not working in the office. I was working in individuals' homes. So I didn't really have to deal with these people that often. But when I did, it was miserable. But during that time, when I was like, during the training time, I did get sick. And just being in that negativity made me sick. And I feel like my health again was attacked. The first time I had to quit training for a few days because I had a bleeding ulcer and had to go to the hospital because I thought I had back pain that could have been my kidneys, but they found out I was bleeding out and they wanted to give me a blood transfusion and I turned it down. And my regular doctor told me to take 3 days off, and then I went back and finished up my training. And by then I was really weak physically, and I knew something was going on with my heart. And I had told my supervisor, you know, before I started training, I told her, when do I start training? I want to know, because I know there's something going on with my heart and I need to get into the doctor, but I can't make an appointment until I know when the training is, because I want to work around that. And she would not tell me, but she knew for months when my training was. I know she knew. And she wouldn't tell me. Even though I told her my circumstances, she did not care. And it's like she didn't care if I lived or died. She wanted to snuff out light. And what a better place to work than in a caregiving facility full of caregivers, where you're in charge of caregivers who are giving and want to better someone's life. And I noticed they would try to pit us against our the people we cared for. They would try to make it so we didn't trust each other. And I noticed I've heard other organizations, other companies don't do that so much. So once I feel better again, I think I'm going to go apply to one of those ones that I've heard good things about. But this one, it was funny because I was there for 3 days. I was sick that last day, but I was told I cannot miss anymore. Don't miss anymore. And so I went. I had terrible diarrhea. I had terrible stomach pains and a terrible headache. And I went and I pulled through it. And we had just finished up. I walked out the doors and I was talking to another caregiver, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I need to go home now. I need to leave because I'm not sure if I can make it home. I didn't make it home. I made it a mile and someone had to come and grab me. And it ended up being that I had a massive bleed out. I had an aneurysm burst and it bled out all over my torso. It saturated all my organs and my intestines in blood, and everything, all my organs were angry and a little damaged. I didn't know blood was so damaging, and it killed a good chunk of my large intestine. And I had to have an ordeal of 4 surgeries. I lived with like an ostomy bag and an ileostomy bag. So I had an ostomy bag, and that was attached to your large intestines. Had the reversal. Everything was going great. Then it went bad. I had a blockage. Had to go in. Lost more. And then had to have an ileostomy that's on the small intestines. And so, like, what was that? Like 6 months later, I had the reversal on the ileostomy bag. And so now I'm doing better, but I'm still having my health is still suffering, and I'm having a lot of iron issues, a lot of dizziness, and a lot of headaches again. So it's just like, still my health is not good. And I really feel like it's these jobs, and it was that church. But honestly, the jobs are worse because you can't really get away from those. So if you can find a good job, do it. If you can remove yourself from a toxic situation, whatever situation that is, do it. Otherwise, I think I'm going to ask around and find out how we can better protect ourselves from these kind of things. And I think I want to do a video on it because I think it's really important. I need that information, and I think you can use it too. So anyways, I hope that I added something to your day and to your life. And please share with me any thoughts you may have, or any experiences you may have experienced, and anything that has helped you, because I really want to find a way to uplift each other and to overcome these things together. That's really what I want from this channel. I want us to be better together, and I want us to find ourselves in a better place. Anyways, thank you again for joining me, Jeanette, at the Bridge Within. We'll see you. Bye.